From consistent negative reviews, lengthy criticism, and dividing its audience little by little with the introduction of every new manga chapter, to unprecedented success in making history within the realm of Yuri. How did Watanabe, a series that at one point was disliked by so many, become so successful? That's what we'll be covering today. But before this video begins, my name is Wadasha, I'll be your host. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I make a lot of Yuri content just like this. With that said, let's begin. Before we can immediately jump into the modern day commercial success of Watanabe, we first need to look at the beginnings. The Watanabe light novel by Teran Mikami first released in Japan on February 21st, 2020, and not long after, in May, the story received a manga adaptation. The English release was later licensed by Seven Seas Entertainment. Now, as it typically is with manga, people tend to engage with these more than light novels, and we saw that with Watanabe. When the manga released, a new wave of people came in, giving this surprising Yuri manga a try. However, many people, including myself, would soon realize that the story wasn't quite what they expected. Not only was the story a harem, something that, from what I recall at the time, the story wasn't widely advertised as, it was under constant flack for literally everything, and I don't say that lightly. The protagonist, Rinako Amaori, was a heavy point of contingency for the new people coming into Watanabe. For many people, she made the story very uncompelling. Her often lack of accountability and character development throughout the series got very tedious to witness, especially for people who came into Watanabe thinking that they'd get a story that had a certain level of depth. And aside from Rinako, another character, Myotsuka, also caught considerable amounts of criticism in literally almost every chapter. In a well-written review on My Anime List by the user CXDR, they summarized the overall thoughts that many readers had. Mai is a psychopath. This isn't inherently a bad thing, and it's actually played well enough for comedy in the first volume. But then the sobering reality kicks in that she's really just like this, and we're supposed to side with her for the whole series. She'll occasionally launch into a monologue about the pressure she feels to be perfect and no one knowing the real her. But there's no discernible difference between her private and public personas. Rinako even roasts her for sounding like an emo kid, but this plotline still gets played straight. The chemistry between these two leads is largely chalked up to destiny, shorthand for the writer's shallow intention. Mai falls in love with Rinako in the span of one chapter, and that's just that. Rinako spends every second chapter complaining about how horrible Mai is, but she still finds herself inexplicably attracted to her. Not only did the lack of development catch flack from the audience, even the characters did, the world building did, the plotline did, and pretty much anything else you can think of was seen as an issue. I think it's safe to say that Watanabe was pretty split. People either hated it or loved it. There really was no clear in between. But 5 years later from the manga's release in 2025, that split would drop down to almost zero with the introduction of the Watanabe anime. On July 8th, 2025, the Watanabe anime was released. This was huge because while the story already had a manga and a light novel, anime are usually where you draw bigger pools of individuals, which is exactly what happened. Yuri fans and non-Yuri fans alike would keep up with Watanabe watching episode by episode every week, and it didn't take long to realize that Watanabe was an overwhelming success. You had people left and right that didn't even like Yuri, or harems for that matter, declaring how much they loved Watanabe. You had Yuri fans who hated the original material coming out and saying that they loved the anime. For a period of time, if you were on YouTube or Twitter and you engaged with Yuri to literally any degree, you would see the Watanabe anime. And the cherry on top, the same year that the anime aired and finished, it was confirmed for a 5-episode mini-series in the same year, scheduled to be released only a few months later. People loved Watanabe, and the demand was so high that the studio needed to cater to that audience. But the question is, what happened? What caused such a drastic shift? There's a few reasons why the Watanabe anime became so popular that we're going to tackle one by one, starting with Studio Mother. Studio Mother, the people behind the Watsunari anime, obviously had a vision. If you've seen the anime, you can tell this studio did not come to play. From hyper-fixating on the individuality of each character, to making sure that every frame is visually stunning, to going over the top for even a single shot, it was beautiful. But beyond that, it was faithful, yet innovative. Studio Mother took Watsunari. They looked at it and asked Teran Mikami, "Can we innovate?" And they did. Though that might seem subtle to you, for Yuri fans, that was everything. It had been so long since a studio was willing to do that. To go that extra mile to provide an amazing final product to the audience. Studio Mother was single-handedly the reason why this anime thrived. But secondly, just like I stated before, innovation. Studio Mother looked at a variety of Yuri over the last decade or so, and they asked themselves, what do all these stories that inevitably reach their ceiling have in common? Was it a lack of effort? Was it a lack of appeal? No. They went ahead and put out their magnifying glasses, their cameras, and they zoomed in, and what did they see? What did they see? They all ended before they got second seasons. The stories ended before they could pick up the pace. They ended before the series showed you why it was so good. So they went, okay, how can we change that? How can we make it so that in one season, we give the audience what we have to offer? And one of the employees in the back goes, well, why don't we speed up the pacing? The pacing? The head director says. Yeah, if we show everything we have, we won't have to worry about ending on a cliffhanger or hoping that the sales are good enough to encourage a second season. Can't we just fit all the impactful moments into one season? This is the moment where the studio went silent. Could that even work? Something like that was borderline unheard of in Yuri. All their impactful moments in one season. How would that even work? What would that even look like? So they tried it. They deliberately sped up the pacing, and whether they realized it or not, they had just played around the curse that had plagued so many Yuri for such a long time. But it's important to note that the main reason why such a change worked was because they had a safety net. Watsunari at its core is a fast, dialogue-based comedy, so it was perfect. Speeding up the story wouldn't inherently cause any issues because the story had already been built around a faster pace. Now, of course, not everyone loved the faster nature of the story, but it worked in context. See, some comedies tend to work better in an animated setting, more so the animation-heavy, exaggerated ones, not to mention that, whether deliberately or not, Teran Mikami had already written just about every character at a faster pace. Look at Rinako, for example. Her sporadic thoughts, her sporadic moments, it's things like that that contributed to that safety net. So keeping that in mind, they picked up the pace. And by episode 12, the anime was already on chapter 62 of the manga. And at its core, do you guys know what it is? The real reason why Watsunari is making history right before your very eyes. It's quite simple, really. I'll give you guys a few moments. Go ahead and comment what you think. I'll wait. While you're at it, go ahead and like. If you still haven't subscribed, what are you doing? I'll give you guys a few seconds. I'll wait. You know, take your time. Okay. The answer, it's innovation. You see, something that's constant throughout the entire Watsunari anime is the innovation. Every step of the way, the studio evolved. From creating around the curse of Yuri anime, often having abrupt endings, to giving each character the feel as though they jumped straight out of the manga itself, everyone widely agrees that all the characters have been done justice. The story has been done justice. And more so, I would even argue that all of these elements were elevated. That's innovation. That's the reason why people who couldn't really get behind the pacing of the manga or some of the events that the manga chose to make can enjoy the anime. Where all the other studios failed, or rather gave up over the years, Studio Mother went and said, yeah, no. And that is an attitude that I want to see more of going into 2026 and later with all these various Yuri anime. That innovation mentality. That I want this to succeed mentality. And though they never outright say these things, of course, it's very clear that this is how they feel, and truly, it can't get much better than that. And now the final thing that I want to add before we close this out, the third thing that also greatly contributed to the success of the Watanabe anime, it's the themes, right? The themes also played an exceptional role. Over the course of, I don't even know how many years, harems have been super popular. Okay, I personally don't get the appeal, that's just me, but I know that people far and wide love harems. So when you combined all of it, Watanabe, this series that's sort of there but in an interesting boat, and the demand for harem in the world, and you combine them, you literally have an untapped gold mine. I kinda even want to say that Watanabe is a story that was meant to appeal to the masses, right? This is a story that literally anyone can consume. It doesn't matter if you like Yuri, if you dislike Yuri, you can consume this and, well, you'll probably walk away enjoying the experience, right? It's honestly crazy to see the shift that this anime had over the last few years. And when I say that, I really mean that. I have reviews on Watanabe dating back to almost 3 years ago at this point. I've been with this series for quite some time, and not a day in my life did I ever think that the same year the anime finished airing, it would get a movie, or rather a sequel, and that sequel would have over 1 million views of people in awe, of people anticipating, waiting. I never expected it. But ladies and gentlemen, that's how the world's most hated Yuri became an anime phenomenon. It was an untapped gold mine that Studio Mother capitalized off of, and they did their shit. Now, I doubt that I have to say this here, but is Watanabe actually the world's most hated Yuri? Probably not, but I mean, the title is for views, it's for clicks, right? I want to eat, you guys get to eat, let me eat. You know, I'm trying to get paid, I like money, you guys like money, don't bash your brother. Though the title to a certain degree is obviously bait, it's not too far from the truth. But with that said, thank you all so much for watching. Please do let me know your opinions on Watanabe in the comments. Let me know a few things actually. How long have you guys been with Watanabe for? Did you expect the anime to have this sort of reception? And where do you think the anime will go from here? Let me know everything you guys have to say related to Watanabe. I'll be looking at your comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, make sure you are subscribed. If you frequent my content as well, consider becoming a member. You get access to literally all videos early, and in the future you guys will also have some more perms. Not in too much of a rush for that right now though. It's been your friend Wadisha. I'll catch all you guys later. I should leave and take home 1,000 words, and I don't know how this part of my brain works. You say try and I try to keep it down. I look yeah, I'm acting like a kid and I should stop, but this couple in the subway look like us. And you're smart, so I know you'll get home safe, but when you get back you call me any